Hi, welcome to the Mindset. I'm Christopher Feltner, Training Performance Architect for Ukeru Systems, and with me is...
Kim Sanders. I am one of the executive vice presidents here at Grafton and the president of Ukeru Systems.
So it has been a while since we have done this. I think the last two episodes were posted in June, which means we recorded them probably, April, I'm guessing?
It's been a while.
So a lot's happened since then. A couple things, right? Society's a little different. It's a little less healthy in some ways. Hopefully things will be on the up and up here before too long. So let's talk about this morning. When I woke up this morning and looked in the mirror, I was like, man, I look tired. This is a horrible way to start out a podcast morning.
Do you think that's because it's Friday or because we're like so many months into a global pandemic?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. So I've been trying to get myself off of caffeine. That's been one thing I've tried.
That's tough.
So right now, we're kind of alternating. Sometimes we work in office, sometimes we work from home. So when I'm home, I don't drink caffeine. But when I come into the office, I have. So what I found is that even if I have like a strong caffeine drink, just one, on one day, the next day, I get like this big withdrawal headache, like that quick.
Wow,
So,
that quick. I'm a little surprised by that. I would think it would have had to have been like building back up in your body to have that kind of effect.
one would think. I don't know. I still have my sense and smell and taste, so I feel good otherwise.
So what's your plan? Are you going to keep going back and forth, or are you going to just try to stop it?
Well, here's the problem. This morning, I was like, well, you know what? I'll get something subtle. I'll just get some tea. So then by the time I get that tea, I'm like, well, I'll get a frappe. So now the crazy thing is, if I do that on a Friday, usually Saturday and Sunday, I'm fine. But I think it's because I get a lot more sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the key.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
So anyway, the short story is, I feel like I was looking a little rough this morning. So, how about yourself? Did you have a picture perfect morning?
No, but I got to tell you this funny thing that happened to me yesterday morning. So we got new iPhones, and the new iPhones have the Face ID,
Mm-hmm.
so you just look at it and it unlocks it. And so yesterday morning when I woke up and my alarm went off, I reach for my iPhone, I turn it off, hold my iPhone up like it's become habit, and it did not even recognize me. So I'm thinking like my morning look is so different and quite hideous that even my own iPhone doesn't recognize me. So, oh gosh, that's a bad sign.
You set off the anti-theft?
Oh my gosh, so bad.
Man. Okay, well, my phone did recognize me, so I feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit better, which it's not like a whole lot can change about my look in one evening. So.
Oh, I thought that too.
So something else that's different since last time is we did have a patch of 2-3 good months of travel in there where we could travel during this whole crazy pandemic.
We did, and it was fun. It was great.
I feel like it was the easiest it's been to fly because they weren't booking middle seats. They got a little lax on that right before they cut everything off again, but weren't booking middle seats, less people in the airports. Probably the most challenging thing for us when we were on the road is the restaurants, because a lot of places you either have to get takeout or you have to eat outside. I stayed in a couple of hotels where you weren't even allowed to eat in the lobby. So that was interesting. So it's like, okay, so I'm eating in the car alone.
Yeah, I know. But I have to say the other thing about the airplanes is I felt like they were the cleanest I had ever felt on them.
Mm-hmm.
You would take your own little wipe and you'd look at it and it was actually clean already. So, I mean, a lot of people were questioning us flying and aren't you afraid to fly? But that period of time when we were flying, I felt so safe. so safe. And knock on wood, we all stayed safe.
Yeah.
But man, things have in the last month for sure have really taken a change. So
Yeah.
we're grounded again.
That's right. Well, I guess the other challenging thing was you got to wear a mask from the time you're in the airport to the time you get out.
Oh yeah.
So for us, if we're at a place where we're already wearing a mask the entire training, so an 8-hour period, and then we get like what, half hour, maybe an hour break before the airport, then pretty much for another 8 hours or so, you're wearing a mask.
Yeah.
So that's been different. But compared to those working in hospitals, we got it easy.
So easy.
So I really
So
can't
easy.
complain.
No.
So when you and me had started talking about, you know, different things we want to talk about in upcoming episodes, one of the things that you brought up was you want to talk about the reality of aggression in our types of settings. So what was your thought process with that? What inspired that?
Well, I think what's inspired that is back in the spring, we had a lot of, what I'm going to say, different media outlets that were reaching out to Ukeru for comment or to be interviewed. We even had like some pretty major national media come here and interview us here. And as you talk to people who are reporters and journalists, and, you know, in many cases, they're trying to do what they think is right by getting more information about restraint and seclusion and sort of trying to help sort of lead that advocacy effort to eliminate it, which again, we're all for. We're all for that. But what I noticed when I was talking with them is so often it felt like their reality of what behavior really looks like at a private school or a place like Grafton, I felt like it was a little skewed a little bit. Like maybe they didn't have a true picture. And so I wanted to talk about that, but I have to be honest. I've even now, like sitting here today, I'm a little hesitant because number one, I want to be like super respectful of the people that we serve. And I definitely don't want to make them out as like demons and monsters and, people
Right.
that people should be scared of.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's super important for the public to understand that the work that our direct care staff are doing is maybe nothing that they've ever dreamed of. Like
Mm-hmm.
that they may not really understand, maybe unless you're a parent or have a family member
Right.
that truly has some extreme behavioral issues. And please, I want people to know that when I even talk about behavioral issues, we totally see that as a form of communication. And again, not something we don't want to demonize it. But
Yeah. So you and I have both started in direct care, right? And I would say that looking at our own place of work as well as other facilities we work with, you know, aggression that comes up in our field is, you know, hasn't really lessened, I would say.
right.
You know, for whatever reason. I mean, there's several reasons to that. And we factor in the growing understanding of trauma and how practices are evolving. You know, you and I have faced a lot of challenges when we've trained or presented of people who really feel like the only way you can handle aggression is restraint, right? A lot of times, and they need consequences and things we've talked about before. So, what is the reality of what our DSPs face in this line of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess, number one, all of us define our own reality, right? So
Yep.
what I think is like super duper tough behavior, you may think, well, this is no big deal at all. I got this. So there's a lot of things that's with our own pasts, with our own feelings of, what scares us, what makes us panic, maybe even pain tolerance. That's a big thing too. And so, I think like one of the reporters I talked to, we were talking about, dealing with a very challenging behavior, and she was very quick to say that, she had dealt with some challenging behavior with her own child. And then when we got talking about it, she was seeing challenging behavior as like a tantrum, and like how stressful that was on their family. And absolutely, that is stressful. But for me, that was maybe one of the sparks that showed me, like, wait a minute, like, I'm not sure she understands like what we're working with here at Grafton. We're not necessarily working with kids that have tantrums, like, cry, scream, roll on the floor tantrum. But, and I asked her, I was like, no, I'm talking about like being kicked in the shin 15 times in a row, being bit in the face, being pulled by your hair to the floor. That's more, when we think of challenging behavior, that's more of the reality of facilities, behavioral health facilities and private schools and alternatives to public schools, and
Right.
alternatives to, being at home with your family, or like, we're talking about things that are painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that the general population really understands that, because, even, with people that in your personal life, I'm sure you've had conversations with family or friends, it's not unusual to say something to your family, or to go home with a scratch or bruises or a bite mark, and for people's first response to be like, oh, I wouldn't put up with that. Right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I
Yep.
wouldn't take that from those kids. Well, we do, because we're trying to help them. And there has to be somebody in this world that's going to help these kids. Like, we don't have we have entered into this field knowing, honestly, that could happen, hoping that our places of employment will do everything possible, give us all the tools we can to stay as safe as possible. But that's reality for us. It's sort of like telling a firefighter, like, you're going to face fires,
Yep.
So, but I don't know if people truly have that picture. And I guess, like, for me, the whole thing was just to make sure that we do our jobs as educating people on what that reality looks like. And I'm not asking for us to get a buy or a pass, but maybe a little bit of a break. Like, there are definitely people in this field that are doing things that are just 110% wrong, and people need to be held accountable. But when someone makes a slight mistake, or you don't feel like someone managed a situation exactly correct, man, maybe give them a bit of a break, the benefit of the doubt. Let's retrain, let's support, versus sort of throwing people away, because this is tough.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, under normal circumstances in life, there are a lot of things that can affect how we interact, our tolerance of things. But I don't know that people really understand how high stress this type of work can be, right? I mean, it's very rewarding, but at the
Absolutely.
same time, there's a reason it's consistently in the top list of hardest jobs emotionally and physically, right? And unfortunately, when you see, I think that people who are, as you know, who are out there kind of advocating for residential types of places to basically be shut down, I don't know if they really understand the level of treatment and support is needed for the folks that we serve in our settings. That, what would happen if, some of our folks who have a lot of issues with impulse control and, highly aggressive behaviors, that unfortunately, if they didn't have a place like Grafton and other places, law enforcement might be the first step of involvement with them, and then that whole chain of events. I mean,
Right.
it's a complex job for a DSP,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't
And
know.
I was going to say, there's no doubt. I mean, all of us, are in this field, have been in this field for a long time. We would love to live in that world
Mhm.
where you don't need behavioral health, you don't need psychiatric residential treatment or alternatives to public school. I want to live in that world. I don't think
Yep.
I'm going to see that world in my life. Maybe in my grandkids' life, they'll get to see that world. But in the meantime, unfortunately, we're needed. And,
Yeah. Well, I think it's also interesting. I mean, obviously, from our own journey with reducing and working towards eliminating restraint and seclusion, and then seeing numbers of other places, and there's probably more of a push now. Of course, there's always more needed, but probably more of a push now to reduce restrictive and intrusive practices than ever in this field.
hmm
Uh, so, do you think do you think it will get to a point where residential treatment would no longer be necessary? Like if you had to guess with the way, society shifts and everything, what would be your guess? Not that we're psychic in any way.
again, I don't see it happening for generations. I just don't. I mean, maybe it will lessen. Maybe we won't need as many agencies or facilities. I mean, it's also about what are we willing to put in its place? What
Right.
other supports are our communities willing to put in place of it? I mean, it's just not going to magically disappear.
Right.
So, I mean, I do think we're going to be around for generations. And again, I wish we weren't. And I think that if you talk to anyone in like a leadership position in any type of behavioral health facility who says, like, that's what they want, that's what they want to see it, through eternity, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Gotcha.
Because it's not sort of good things for people that are driving that. There's something else that's driving that. Like, who in the world would want this if you had a great alternative? Right? Kids need to be with their families that love them, or a
Right.
family that loves them. But unfortunately, there's not that alternative right now.
So I was thinking, we have a lot of younger, less experienced folks working for us and other facilities where we train at. We see the same trend across the US and outside, you know, younger staff coming in, less experience. But something I've noticed over the years is that you used to be able to predict who would be in it for the long haul and who maybe wouldn't last that long coming in. But I feel like it's harder to predict these days. And I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but I was thinking, despite things that happen on the job every day, the challenges with it, and now with everything with COVID, on top of that, an additional stress and trauma for staff even, what keeps folks here? What keeps folks working with individuals with challenging behaviors despite lack of experience per se? What do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think that you and I could probably talk about our own experiences and
Mm-hmm.
what's kept us here. And, you know, like most other businesses, we do surveys of staff, we ask people. I mean, and then there's a whole bunch of studies around what keeps people in their jobs. Of course, the studies point to their direct supervisor. Like if you look up any of the Gallup studies and the larger studies on workforce, it points straight to their supervisor, the relationship with their supervisor. I mean, I think if you ask people here, you're going to, or probably across the country in this similar field, oftentimes our staff will say that the kids or the clients
Right.
are what keeps them here. That even though it's tough, it is that satisfaction of the little things, satisfaction of being able to teach someone who doesn't have typical language, how to sign that they need a break or that they need to go to the bathroom, or, being able to teach a skill that maybe other people have worked on for years at other places. And now you're the one who's sort of had that breakthrough and able to teach it. People here also talk about their coworkers, that if you truly feel a part of the team, your team becomes your family, and you
Yeah.
don't want to leave them. You don't want to let them down. I mean, I know for me in the beginning, it was a lot about the clients, and I used to tell my mom all the time, like, my job was like 90% amazing. Like, there would be things I would get to do with these kids that I would think, like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. On Saturdays, go to the movies, take them hiking, go out to eat. I mean, just like an amazing Saturday. But then there was 10% that was truly so tough that I went to my mom sometimes and would be like, I don't know if I can keep doing it. But the 90% keeps pulling you back. And again, a big part of that were the people that I worked with, and then supervisors. I mean, I've had, for the most part, incredible supervisors along the way. I mean, early on, I had a lady named Karen Castelli that made me feel super special, was constantly supportive, taught me a lot. And so, you have people along the way that it makes it so you don't want to leave. I mean, how about for you? Like, what were the things that kept you, like, especially when you were working direct care?
I think it was the massive amount of riches, the inflated bank account that
Right,
comes
all
with
the
this,
money, all the money.
all the raining that comes down. I mean, it was definitely understanding that there's a reason why our children and adults act, in ways that are aggressive at times. Thinking about how, what would it take for me to say and do some of the things that I've seen and heard? And thinking I would really have to be, super angry or afraid or anxious or whatever it is, and using that to help build up my own empathy. And then also seeing how you can take, especially a teenager who, doesn't have self-esteem, or, is trying to put up a really hard front, which is also comes back to self-esteem. And then seeing them start to trust you and let their walls down and get up to the point where they're laughing more, they're smiling more, they're interacting more. Um, that's a big part of it. I could definitely empathize or relate to what you said about supervisors, because Jeremy, which some of you watching, listening to this may remember, being trained by Jeremy before. He was my original supervisor at Grafton. And then once I got into a training role, Leah, she was a great support. And then now I'm stuck with this other person on this this podcast as a supervisor, and it's going straight in the trash.
Oh, now it really will.
Now,
Oh,
really.
it's on now.
Right. So the next 10 minutes will be edited out of the video. No, I mean, first, I think you have to have a genuine concern and empathy for those you serve. I think that's the first piece. I think having coworkers that you can depend on is the second piece. And then supervisor, to me, was the third piece.
Yeah. It's so funny because Jim Gaynor, who was our former CEO, he would always say that you need to hire for compassion. Because if you can figure out how to tell if a person is truly compassionate, then we can teach them everything else they need to know about the job. But you can't necessarily, I mean, it's sort of like you're born and your personality is you're a compassionate person. I don't want to say that you totally can never teach compassion, because I think maybe you can. I think you could teach, and maybe teach is the wrong word. You can support someone to be kind and compassionate and sort of see how that way is better. I think you can. But man, if you can find those people who just genuine, kind, friendly, compassionate people, this is the place for them, for sure.
Well, I kind of wonder, because I've thought about this before, of what makes someone, from a staff perspective, what makes a staff why are some staff more compassionate right out the gate and less less interested in restrictive talking as well as physical actions? Why are some the opposite? And what I believe is that even the staff who try to come off, really tough and, compliance driven and all, I feel like that's learned, right?
Absolutely.
There's a reason they feel like they have to be that way. Because like you said, you know, I don't believe that places like Grafton, when they interview staff, say, like they do in some jails,
Mhm.
do you know how to fight? Like that's a little question. I've had some folks that I know who've worked in prison system. That was an interview question. Do you know how to fight? And
Wow.
that's not something that we ask when staff come in. We tell them the types of things they might run into aggression wise, and ask them, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you could, compose yourself, and how would you interact in those situations? So I definitely think that if coming across hard as a staff is a learned behavior, just like it is for an individual you serve, then absolutely it can be taught, right? Absolutely it can be taught. And we've seen it,
Yeah.
right? We've seen it with our own staff, even with myself. Like I came into our field, martial arts background, self-defense minded, and that's how I saw my job. I worked a lot with the kids, but if it got to the point of aggression, then I felt like, okay, this is the part where it's physical. Instead of trying to keep as focused on how do I get this back down. Instead of seeing, once it's aggressive, that's it. It's beyond. So that's been a mindset change for myself coming in. So I definitely think that, seeing the progress we've made in our own culture, though you always got to stay vigilant with it, right?
Absolutely.
And we've seen that with many other places. I could think, and I won't name the names of facilities, but some places a little further north from us where we've trained at, where when we first got there, staff were like, this isn't going to work. These kids need consequences, and that's the only way they're going to learn. And now they're doing amazing.
Right.
I don't use the word amazing a lot, but where they've come is truly amazing.
Right.
So I think a lot of how you teach compassion is first, you got to get exposed to what the reality is, right? And I think that's why, we've seen a lot of folks that come in, they have these degrees and all, and you think, oh, they're going to make great staff. And then their first incident or two of aggression, they're gone,
Right.
right? But if you take someone who's at least worked in one or two places where they've had that experience of what it's like, sometimes they're the ones that stick longer.
Right.
So I think that compassion, whether it's our field or even with each other in society, we got to have some realistic exposure to realities of who people are, right?
Right. Right. Well, and I think, along the lines of staff, and especially a younger generation of staff, it's helping them through it. Again, the way that in the times that they have been raised, even from when I have been raised, or my mother, my grandmother, it's all different. Everything is different now. And so I think, so often I hear people talk about like a younger generation of staff being like
Right.
selfish, self-centered, lazy. I'm sorry, I don't see that. I
Well, the
really,
reality, even in my generation of folks, I see people that would fit that. You
absolutely.
know, we
Yeah,
were all young once.
absolutely. And sometimes I see, especially the younger folks that are coming in as applicants now, I see them as being more ambitious, um, have like loftier goals and big ideas about what they want and what they expect. I mean, sometimes when I think about it, I think, gosh, we're looking at this all wrong. Like, instead of sort of labeling them because of their generation, we need to look at them as individuals and what it's going to take to make them feel valued and engage them. And but that's just not a particular generation, that's everybody. That's everybody, and to me, it gets as simple as we need to treat people as people, not
Right.
employees.
Right.
Like the 1950s boss, that day is gone. Like that's over. And if anyone thinks that style of management works today, you're wrong. It's not. People are not going to hang around for that. And sometimes I think the workforce of today, and probably even more in the future, there's some kind of shared accountability happening. Like, you always think of like the boss or the administrative people holding staff and employees accountable. Oh, heck no. They're holding us accountable. They're holding us accountable for how they expect to be treated. And so to me, we better get on board with that, or we truly are not going to have a workforce.
Well, I think, that reminds me of something I've heard you say before is, all the upper level position administrators and stuff, that's not what keeps a place like Grafton afloat.
I've said that many times, here at Grafton, there's like a CEO and a group of people. And if under him, a small group of people, I don't know what, 5 or 6 people. And if you think about that, if 75% of us walked out of here today, Grafton doesn't stop.
Right.
Grafton keeps rolling. Grafton is a large enough company and has good systems. It keeps going. But
Yep.
75% of our direct care staff leave out of here, we're done. It's
You got
over.
it.
It's
Yep.
over. And it's, really, it's our direct care staff that are, and not just Grafton, anywhere. It's the direct care staff that's keeping these organizations moving forward, doing great things. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of corporate positions. There's people in leadership positions. If you have them there, that's wonderful. But I'm just saying the core of what we do is serve people, clients, and kids. And we need people to do that.
Well, it's like the idea of building a home. What's the first thing you have to have before you start building a house?
Well, I guess you got to have some land. You got to have your foundation.
Your
I don't know.
foundation, right? Back in the Wild West times when you would try to build a house with no foundation, those houses didn't stay up so well, right?
Right.
So, really, a DSP is the foundation. Without it, house isn't going to stand.
Absolutely.
And you and I have seen some places that have tried to have it the other way where no, it's the roof of the house is the most important. And then you look at the house and you're like,
Right.
it's not going to stand very long.
Right. Yeah.
So something else, I was kind of thinking about is how I hear folks talk about younger staff and, they're soft and not as tough and all that. But when you look at what we're hoping for with how our folks are treated, being served, isn't it better to have a staff who would have those attributes versus hard-nosed?
Absolutely.
So that,
Absolutely.
and when we think about all of the pushes and legislation happening for reducing, limiting restraint seclusion, and greater prevalence of push for more and more trauma-informed approaches, what do you think the DSP of the future is going to look like? Like, let's say 5, 10 years from now, if things keep going the way they're going, what do you think will be a difference in DSPs?
I think the biggest difference is what we've I think we have made lots of gains at Grafton. We have things we definitely need to work on. We got to get better and better, and we can't lose sight. But I think to me, it's people who want to be seen as equals, who want to share in the good, but also want to be part of the solution, want to be in their problem solving. This is not going to be, if I think of even 20 years ago, It's not going to be like DSPs, just go work with the kids and we'll tell you what to do, and we won't show you any data, and we don't want you to know anything about the finances. I think it's going to be much more, DSPs are going to be more confident and are going to expect to be engaged and included much more, much more. That, the day of someone walking around feeling that they're of greater importance than someone else, that day's going away soon too. I can just tell you, because our workforce is not going to keep putting up with that, just in general. And when I say we, I mean in the field, in this industry.
Right.
Like workforces, and Christopher, because we get to travel and we get to see so many places, we see that often, regardless if it's a CEO or a principal of a school, or, my grandma calls it getting too big for your britches, right? No one likes to be around that person. And, it divides versus brings people together. And I just think that that's the future, and not this, I'm more important because I have better degrees, or I'm more important because I have a bigger title, or it's going to be much more intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I also think that, the whole idea of like staff development and companies investing in their employees to just help support them and help them get better and better. I mean, it's going to be for everyone, not just, often, again, because we travel, we talk to a lot of people. It's not going to be, just a group of clinicians that get to go to a conference and learn new things, or it's going to be spread out, because again, I think, especially with a younger workforce, they're going to hold us accountable. They have in their head an idea of how they expect to be treated. When I was thinking, driving in this morning, getting, thoughts together around this discussion, that when I think about even my grandparents or my parents, would work for the same place forever, would rarely question people in authority. And there was this sense of loyalty, and you could call it respect. In some cases, you could say sort of like, being subservient to people.
Yeah.
Those days are gone. That's gone. The loyalty, and I've heard people say before, like, oh, this new workforce are not loyal anymore. They're not loyal because we're not loyal.
Right.
Right? My grandparents did that kind of stuff. My grandfather did that because he knew that if he stayed at that company and sort of stayed in his lane, he was going to get a retirement. Right? He wasn't going to have to just depend on your Social Security. He was going to actually get a pension, a retirement.
Right.
We don't even do that for people like that anymore. I mean, it's not like you work here for 25 years and you're a certain age, you get to retire. So all that's changed. And again, I say we, meaning just businesses and agencies across our country. So why should they be loyal to us? Lots changed.
So basically, it's time for us to bend more, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And again, I think a lot of the things that we talk about in Ukeru, trauma-informed approaches, the comfort versus control, we try to really push that in the training, that it's not just how kids are treated by staff. It has to be how administration, managers treat staff too. It has to be. That's what people are demanding. And again, as we travel, we see that a lot of people, just like we see a lot of people push back at us on how you treat kids, they push back about how they should treat their staff, because they're just in that groove of, I'm the boss, you listen to me.
Yep. So let's say that someone is watching or listening and they are new to this field, or maybe they're watching and listening and they're considering taking a job at a place like Graft in some specialized setting. What would you want them to know? Like, why should they either stay in this field or why should they come to this field?
I do think it's the most rewarding job. Uh, the rewards are great. But I think that, just again, to be a realist, you have to come in eyes wide open on what you're going to face. Because I don't think it's for everyone. I don't. I think that it can be a little much for some people. And so I would say, make sure that you've talked to other people who work there. Don't look at Indeed. Don't look at Indeed and Glassdoor and all that stuff, because that's the 0.0001% that were upset. And any business anywhere is going to have people here and there that are upset. Talk to some people who currently work there, people who are your friends, people maybe you see on Facebook or something, and see if you think it's a good place to be, and go in knowing that you are going to have an opportunity to either join an amazing place or you can help an amazing place get better. Like, sure. I think that, you can't be the victim. You can't be the victim in this setting. You can't be the victim of the clients or the kids, but you can't come in thinking that you're going to be the victim of like the company. Like, be a part of the solution. Like, when we hire people, we're excited that there's new minds, that may have new ideas. And I think that you have to come in knowing anywhere you go, sort of with enough confidence to be able to speak up if you see something that's not right, or speak up if you have a new idea.
Right.
You have to. But make sure it's for you.
Well said.
Because, I've told people all the time, I've been at Grafton 31 years. I love Grafton. But one job I know I could never do at Grafton is overnight. And Christopher, you have traveled with me on a plane. You can see that I can be asleep. I can be asleep before that plane takes off. So if you put me in a group home that's nice and cozy and warm, I'm not going to be able to stay awake. So I know I will never be an overnight. I will get fired immediately because I won't be able to stay awake. So like you sort of have to know your own limits.
A secret look behind the veil for y'all. This is Kim on an airplane. She brings out her iPad. She talks about she's got this great show or movie. I'm like, okay. I get mine out sitting beside her. I put on the headphones. I look over, and this is Kim. Or this is Kim.
Before takeoff.
And that's just jealousy on my behalf because I can't sleep on a plane, especially red eyes. Like, it's miserable, but yeah, it's a little peek behind the curtain there on us. So
I'm an open book, whatever.
So just to let you all know who are watching and listening, we've actually created a schedule for doing these podcasts again. That was a lot of feedback we got was, where's the rest of the podcast? Y'all did too, and that's it. So we have plans every month towards the end to film a new one with a new topic. And I believe next month we're going to be talking about power dynamics in our field from different aspects, from everywhere from administration all the way to those we serve and what that looks like and how that plays out. So we'll see you then.